Hi, it's Rachel from the Shades of Orange. Today I'm here with my August wrap-up. I read 10 books this month and a lot of those were really amazing. I have some great recommendations for you, so let's just jump right in. Now first I want to talk graphic novels. I read the third volume of Wayward by Jim Zub. This is a series all about teenagers in Japan who have superpowers and use these powers to fight Japanese creatures. I really enjoyed the first few volumes, but this third volume didn't quite hold my attention as well. It was very action-packed and it kind of lacked a lot of character development. So enjoyed the first part of the series, but I'm not sure how much I'll continue on. The other graphic novel I read I absolutely loved and would highly recommend, and that is Lady Killer by Joëlle Jones. And this is about a 1950s housewife who also happens to be an assassin by night. And it's this really fun, retro style graphic novel that really plays on the whole idea of the perfect 1950s housewife. The idea that she can get dinner on the table on time and then still go out and murder people. It's so much fun if you enjoy crime or honestly just enjoy a fun graphic novel. I think it's awesome. The artwork suits the period perfectly. It's a lot of fun. I read it in one afternoon and just thoroughly enjoyed it. Highly recommend that one. If you're thinking about picking it up, just go do it. I also read some awesome contemporary books this month. The first two were both by Jenkins-Reid, which I read on audiobook. She is fast becoming one of my favorite contemporary authors. And the books I read, the first one was Forever Interrupted, which is about a young woman who basically falls in love and marries a man very quickly in a very short span of time, I think like 4 to 6 months. And then he tragically dies. That's not a spoiler. It happens right at the beginning of the book. And the story is told over 2 different timelines. One is the period where they meet and fall in love. It's a little bit of insta-love, but it's kind of necessary to have that whirlwind romance that ends in a very quick marriage. And the other storyline takes place after he's died and she's coping with that grief and meeting her mother-in-law for the first time because they basically married in secret. Compared to other stories, I'd say this is definitely the saddest, since while it's a story about falling in love, you also know that it's going to end in tragedy. So I enjoyed this one, but probably my least favorite of her books just because it was really sad to read. Now the other book I read by her was Maybe in Another Life, which is a story about a woman who is just moved back home to Los Angeles, and she goes out in a night and decides to make a choice, and then based off of that choice, this narrative basically breaks off into 2 different timelines. I think this book is particularly good for anyone who's maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, who is still kind of finding their way in the world, maybe unsure about love or career or relationship or just where they're meant to be. It's really about the question of choice versus self-destination, and just the idea of, is our destiny chosen for us, or do we make our own decisions? I really enjoyed this one. I don't even know how I would rank her books now that I've read all of them. I enjoyed this one, but I don't know if I liked it more or less than her other 2, so I'm still undecided. I haven't actually rated it at this point, but we shall see. I also read 2 young adult contemporaries which were so much fun and absolutely addicting. The first one was Tiny Pretty Things, and the sequel is Shiny Broken Pieces. And these books are both about teenagers who are into professional ballet. They go to a specific school in New York, and it's basically Gossip Girls meets ballet. It's all about backstabbing, and the girls are constantly trying to get the lead roles in each of the ballet performances, and they will do whatever it takes, stabbing each other in the back to get it. It's so much fun. I just inhaled both books. It's, as you can guess, kind of not too serious, but at the same time, totally enjoyable, a little bit of brain candy. But the books themselves are honestly well written, and I really appreciate that the authors, who are people of color themselves, wrote a lot of diversity into the books in terms of both sexual orientation and ethnicity. And the book, despite being about such kind of candy, delicious, decadent, fun topics, actually are grounded in a lot of serious subject matter. The girls suffer from like drug addiction and eating disorders, and there's a lot of really serious stuff going on underneath the surface, but at the same time, it's, like I said, written in this really addictive way, and I just really enjoyed both volumes. If you're looking for a fun YA, just to fly through and just kind of gobble up, these are absolutely worth it. They're so much fun, and I highly recommend both of them. In terms of mysteries and thrillers, I read 3 this month, one being Embittered Chill by Sarah Ward. This is about 2 young girls who go missing, and only one shows up. The other one basically is never found, and years later the detectives decide to reopen the cold case and see what happens. I thought the premise sounded fantastic, but honestly, the story itself and the characters were very average and forgettable, and even though I only read it a few weeks ago, I've already forgotten all the details about it. I just think there are better mysteries out there, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend this one. It was about a 3-star read. The other mysteries I read this month included Pretty Girls by Karin. This was a super buzzy thriller last year. A lot of people read it on audio. It's surprisingly long, and reading on audio, it's like a 17+ hour read, I believe. So in some ways it felt like it dragged on a little longer than it needed to be. But the pacing itself of the story is so fast, and the story is always moving forward, so I really can still call it a page turner, even though it's almost like 700 pages if you read the physical book. It's hard to pitch without saying too much. Basically, there's 2 sisters who, when growing up, their 3rd sister went missing, never found out what happened to her. Now they're adults, and another young girl has gone missing, and they end up in this crazy kind of cat and mouse game with the potential murder, and a lot of crazy stuff happens. There's so much that happens that I can't say because spoilers, but it's definitely a lot of fun. In some ways, the characters were kind of average again. The plot was a lot of fun. I gave it about 3.5 stars. I don't think it's the best thriller I've read, but at the time it was very engaging and I did really enjoy it. So if you're thinking about picking up, I do think it's worthwhile. It was an enjoyable read. Now the third mystery I read this month was definitely underhyped. I've never heard anyone else talk about it. I picked it up randomly at the library and really enjoyed it, so I definitely recommend it if you're looking for an underhyped mystery. And that is Snow Angels by James Thompson. And this is a book set in Finland. It's written by an American who spent the last 10 years in Finland. So a lot of the book really deals with or describes the differences between Finland and America. So I think if you're interested in Scandinavian culture, but are coming from a kind of North American viewpoint, it's a very approachable read. The writing itself is very easy to get into. My issue with a lot of Scandinavian mysteries is that I find the translations to be very clunky, and because this is written in English, I found it really easy to get into. The short synopsis is there's a detective who lives in this very remote town in northern Finland. It takes place around Christmas, meaning that it's virtually dark 24 hours a day, and there's a lot of depression, suicide going on in the area. A lot of people are heavy drinkers just because it's dark outside and the depression is prevalent, which is really fascinating. And basically this young woman is brutally murdered in a really graphic, disturbing way. There's definitely some dark content in this one, and he's trying to figure out who did it, and the story goes from there. It's very well done. I really thought the mystery was well plotted. It was exciting. There was some twists and turns, a little bit of action and suspense. And yeah, really enjoyed this one. So highly recommend Snow Angels by James Thompson. Finally, I want to save my favorite book for last, and this could fall into the science fiction or thriller category. You've probably heard of it, but if you haven't read it yet, you need to change that ASAP. And the book I want to talk about is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This has gotten super buzzy in the last few weeks. It came out right at the end of July. Technically, I received a copy from Bloggers for Books, which gives out ARCs, but I received a copy after the book had already came out, and the only reason I requested it was because I was impatiently waiting for a copy from my library. So I just basically wanted a copy faster. So completely honest review, completely unbiased. If I didn't like it, I'd let you know. But I absolutely love this one. It's best if you go in without knowing too much, but what I can tell you is that all the buzz around this book and the promotion are completely valid because the book is so much fun. It's about a man who is having an evening in with his family. He goes out to buy ice cream and essentially is kidnapped and taken away. And without saying too much, this book is about science, and at its core, it's really about a man trying to get back to his family. So it's a combination of sci-fi with a lot of emotional family elements to it. In some ways, people kind of call it like a love story to his family. And I just don't want to say too much because most of the reviews and promotions about the book say way too much. It's just no, trust me, if you're looking for a fast-paced, fun read, this is going to be like the buzzy book of the year. I guarantee it's going to win its category for the Goodreads Awards. It's going to be a bestseller. It's going to get turned into a movie. It already reads like a movie, and the rights have already been sold to Hollywood, so it's happening. And this is just a book, like, trust me, if you're into those kind of fun, action-packed books, this is definitely one to pick up. While it's totally different from The Martian, I would put it in the same category as those books that kind of transcend the sci-fi genre, and just one of those books that everyone's going to end up loving and reading, just regardless of what type of book you usually read. So highly recommend, definitely go pick it up. It's so much fun and I loved it. I inhaled it in just a couple of days. And honestly, like I said, it's completely worth the buzz. There's been so many buzzy books this year that have disappointed me, but this book is just as good as everyone said it was going to be. So go pick it up. That's everything I read this month. Let me know if you've read any of these down below or if you plan to pick them up based off my recommendation. Honestly, I read some awesome books this month, so I hope you got some recommendations. I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye.